when we talk about these things, people jump to remote. Remote is a term I don't like. Remote is something hard to get to. If you tell me you live in a remote area, I'm already afraid of going there. Remote is something that already implies distance. So it's not something that I can use to bring people closer and people, bring people together, which is exactly what we're doing here. And also you have a soup of acronyms and different names. And so when everybody calls it something else, everybody's coming up with a different type of descriptor for it, as evidenced by the several things that you see here on this slide, which are all out there. Somebody at some point is calling it exactly that. Of course, you have differences also when it comes to the modes that are being employed. So cloud-based interpreting, which is what you have in Kudo, is different from a purely Wi-Fi based system like the old Linguali that used to be around and other solutions that are out there. You also have video conference interpreting where you bring a video monitor into, say, a doctor's office, and the interpretation is done consecutively. So there are many different ways to look at remote. But more importantly, remote is not something new. Remote is something we've had for a long time. So distance interpreting, if I'm true to what I said I was going to call it. If you've been interpreting for a while now, those of us who've been around the block once or twice, we've been in situations like this, where we are in a booth, all equipped with the latest conference equipment, and perhaps we are in the very building where a conference is taking place. However, now they have left that room, and they are in an adjacent room doing, say, a press conference. And now they can't fit booths in that particular room, but they have fiber optics cable running through the building and coming to us in the interpretation booth. It's what we call the internal cable. Quality is super high. You have a good monitor in front of you. Sound is supposed to be exactly what you get in the booth. So it's what they call in French also interprétation à distance à proximité. So many organizations have done this. The State Department has done this extensively, the European institutions as well. And we've all been there. And we don't seem to look at it as something completely out of the blue. And then you have the external cable. External cable is just pretty much the same situation, the same experience for the interpreters, only now I might be in a different building across the street or across the world. Or more close to what we're living through now, I might even be home, right? So I never imagined when we started Kudo that interpreters were going to work from home. We didn't recommend that. We didn't think that this was going to be conducive to good and high quality because, again, dogs bark, people argue, you have no control over many variables. But now the world is actually dealing us that card, and we have to make do with it. And we're doing our best. But when the world comes back to normal, we in Kudo and solutions like ours are going to go back to the model of a Kudo Studio, which is exactly what Lola Bendana has in Sergio in Toronto. So a Kudo Studio is exactly the same picture that I showed you here, only now instead of being in the same building and so on, I'm relying on the internet. I'm relying on cloud connectivity, basically. Other than that, if the sound is good enough, if my connectivity is good enough, if everything has been looked into and complied with as presented in a list of requirements that we're going to share with you, they're good to go. Interpreters are going to come to a booth. They're going to sit side by side. They're going to work and exchange notes. They have a technician standing by. The only difference is that they don't have people sitting in front of them. Now, this is a slide I used to show just to tell people what the use cases used to be when I was trying to convince people that this sometime was, at some point, was going to come to them. This slide is now obsolete because I don't have to convince you of anything. You're all at home now doing meetings online day in and day out, many of which already with interpretation. If you're not relying on Kudo, you're doing something else. You're using one of the platforms that somehow allow you to do it as well. So I'm not going to spend another minute here. Then I'm going to bring it closer to home to what I know best, which is my own, our own tool, if you will. But I don't want this to become just a propaganda for Kudo. I understand the predicament we're all in, and I don't want to sound like I'm imposing Kudo as the only or the best solution. I think your job as an interpreter is to be out there trying everything under the sun. Give an honest try to Kudo if you're a conference interpreter. Kudo is just for conference interpreting, simultaneous interpreting, but also try the other platforms. I'm very at ease suggesting that because I know from our quality and what we do that if you are a conference interpreter and if you try everything, there's a high chance that you're going to settle with Kudo, because this is a very interpreter-centric platform. We have interpreters at the core of everything that we do. But the others may also, I don't know, address a specific situation that you feel more comfortable with. Maybe the user interface appeals to you in a different way. So by all means, there's space for everyone. And we now have more market, all of us, I guess, than we imagined it was going to be the case. And of course, we want to grow and thrive, and that's exactly what I'm suggesting you do by looking, casting your net as wide as you can. A little bit about Kudo, of course, it's the system you're using now, so I don't have to tell you a lot in terms of the user experience, just to say that everything you see on the big screen is also available on the small screen. Of course, this is a video collaboration platform like any other. In addition to having the beauty of a language button to allow you to go from French to English and back, which is the situation in this case, Kudo also allows you to do everything else you can do on Skype or Zoom or GoToMeeting or WebEx. You can share your screen, you can share documents, you can share your opinion by voice or by chat. So there's a lot that you can do, and it doesn't matter if you are on a cell phone, if you are under Wi-Fi, or if you are on a cable connection. And of course, the core of what we do, the major difference in what we do, is that we have professional trained conference interpreters, like the two colleagues that have graced us with their presence here today. Mike Lemay, by the way, is his name, a colleague from Montreal here, and well, here for you, Lola, in Canada, and Nathalie Greff Santa Maria. We plan on having another colleague with us, but for some reason, I guess she had some connectivity issues and couldn't be there. But these are the two colleagues that we have today, and I wanted to thank them very much. So Lola, if you need a good Canadian sounding, excellent AA English and French interpreter, Mike Lemay is a good option for you. He's been helping us a great deal in Kudo. Kudo also has support for sign language, and we're very proud of that particular feature. So for a deaf delegate, it's as simple as going and selecting a different language. So instead of going to English or French, if sign language was available here or were available here, you could simply go to American Sign Language and boom, you see a little video with the signing interpreter. So it's as simple as that. And it's very, very interesting. In terms of technology, the most important thing here is the latency. If you're getting this on a good enough connection, it doesn't have to be super good. You're probably unaware of any lag between what I say and what you hear in terms of time. Even if you're standing in front of me and I'm speaking your sign language and you're listening to me as I stand in front of you, we're going to get maybe a little echo, but it doesn't really bother you at the end of the day. And of course, if you're doing this through interpretation, then it's totally negligible because the interpreter will introduce a much higher lag. Right? Now, a few things that are very important in how we deal with interpretation, and here I'm going to address some of the fears that might be on your mind as well. One important thing to keep in mind is that we're not doing any of this just to prove the change is possible and just to squeeze you guys into a corner that's uncomfortable for you. We're doing this, and we're very proud to have started doing this 3 years ago for situations like this, for when the world deals you a bad hand and all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where if it weren't for technologies like this, the events were going to be gone. So I'm very, very proud of having tried with all the difficulties in the beginning, with all the imperfections of the system, and it does still have imperfections. Very proud to be out there, reaching out to institutions, to organizations, to partners like Lola and Sergio and others, and interpreters like Mike and Natalie today, and empowering everybody, giving them a chance to continue to do what they do best, to continue to make a difference in people's lives, and to continue to move the economy, albeit in a limited way, but an important way just the same. So, but anyway, we do this, get ready, but we don't do this to impose a change that everybody has to live with. So the motto in Kudo, and one I want to leave you with, is keep what works. So if you have the budget and the installations and the interpreters locally to do an event in person, and everybody you need to have there is already there, by all means, meet in person. I'd say there's a lot that comes from being in the same room with people and interacting and going to the coffee break, which is where most of the deals get closed anyway. There's a lot. This is what makes us human. This is how we got here. You know, sitting around the fire, listening to tales that we later repeat and we pass on from generation to generation. It's in our DNA. So let's continue to do that. Now, for everything else, if this is not there, somebody misses a flight, if somebody gets ill, if the interpreter cannot be sourced locally, or if there's a crazy virus out there that gets us all stuck at home, then we now have a solution. So look at it this way. We're not in to replace anything or anybody. So that's important. Interpreters are at the core of what we do. We've developed this by listening to interpreters, by managing interpreters, by talking to them. But this should not be something, again, that the companies use to squeeze you into rates that you're not comfortable with, or into manning strength that are totally outside of the normal parameters. So you're not supposed to work longer because you're doing it remotely. You're not supposed to charge less because you're doing it remotely. You're expected to show flexibility because some people are just going to meet every day several times for 20 minutes. They're no longer meeting for a full day. So it might behoove you to have more flexibility in how you present your rates, but you don't have to make less money because you're charging per hour. The idea is if all you need is an hour of my time, I'm going to charge you so much that if I add up the hours, of course, I'm compensated for more than a full day. Right? And working conditions. So Kudo was done with interpreters in mind, and the concept of a Kudo Studio is an important one to allude to here, because when the world is back to normal, we want interpreters to work in teams. We want the interpreters to work in pairs. We want interpreters to have a technician standing by. We don't want you guys to be contactees. For now, you will have to do a little bit of this. And again, we're adapting as we go. And Kudo, for example, didn't have the handover button that we now have. We're now considering adding a few more features to allow interpreters to listen to the floor and the colleague at the same time, because we never imagined that we were going to be working to have interpreters work from a place other than a studio. So interpreting is teamwork. Interpreter is something that only you know the price of if you are a professional. So by all means, keep enforcing that. And last but not least, Kudo is not for amateurs. I used to say not for beginners. It could well be for beginners. You could be fresh out of school and still a well-formed conference interpreter. By all means, a platform like us is for you. But it's not for amateurs. It's not for people who have only done Consec up until here. And now they say, well, now that I kind of, can hide behind the screen and now I can, try my hand at this. That's not for you. So you need to know what you're doing. You need to be a conference interpreter in your own right. This is the interpreter interface. We can spend some time later if you come to one of our webinars. So we have pretty much daily webinars for interpreters now who join our platform. But again, something that was done exactly to try and mimic what you see in front of you. If you have a normal console, a hardware console, only of course in software form. You can control the interface by hand, by mouse. You have the shortcut keys. Again, these are details that might be a bit boring at this point, but if you come to take the onboarding and you join us for the webinars, you're going to have a lot of fun trying these things, right? So, and you can, of course, all of you, if you want to give Kudo a try, just go to this link on the web and join us. We now have 4,500 interpreters who have joined us. Half of them have joined us over the last month. And they're all in some way or fashion bringing their clients over. They're finding ways to continue to go out and shake the trees. They now have something to offer. And we make it easy for you. We offer you a free hour. If you want to persuade a client, we can do a demo or two for you. And again, we have Lola and Sergio in Canada if you need support. If you are a client looking for not just the technology, but the level of service that comes from having an LSP like Multi Languages Corporation on your side. You have everything in one, it's a perfect one-stop shop. Lola has been one of our first partners, and Sergio, their attention to detail is absolutely laudable, and we've only had excellent and actually positive experiences with Lola and so on. They've helped us develop and make the product better, and we're very proud of that association. I won't have time to talk about this, but if you guys want to ease into remote, one thing I always suggest people to check out is this, GLGIT. This is a network of consultants, and you can register as a council member, as they say, but in fact, you're registering as an interpreter. They have phone conversations with people that they put in contact with one another on a daily basis. You can set your rate, and if you're doing nothing on a Saturday morning and you're good to go on a call for 30 minutes, this is what I did for most of the time I was in school. And they still call me every now and again. Now they call me less because I checked up my rate too high. But it's, again, one way for you guys to give it a try. Feel free to contact me later. I can be reached at just my name at kudoway.com, and I'll be happy to talk to you. Lola, I had to rush a little bit in the end because I'm bad at timekeeping, so sorry about that. So here's my contact information. Glad to answer any questions you might have if we have time. I'm free to stay another 15 minutes if you guys have time. Thank you, Lola, so much.
Thank you so much, Ewandro. And that was fantastic.